signaled his willingness to engage in talks with President-elect Trump. Yesterday, Trump shared on social media an article about those comments titled, "Putin says he's ready for potential talks with Trump during year-end news conference." That was, of course, that kind of mega 4-hour news conference in which he shared that idea. So, David Ignatius, when you look at that headline and the fact, I guess what's interesting is that Donald Trump shared it as much as that President Putin said it. Very few details yet. What's your initial reaction?
Caddy, my feeling is that this is another statement of what we all sense, which is that the season of negotiation is about to begin.
Yeah.
President Trump has said through the campaign, President-elect Trump, that he intends to negotiate, can resolve this in 24 hours, he claimed at one point. But more seriously, he's already designated his special emissary for Ukraine, retired General Kellogg. He's going to be heading there, I'm told, in just over a week to do some fact-finding in Ukraine. President Trump himself, President-elect Trump, has met with Ukrainian President Zelensky in Paris with the orchestration of French President Macron. So the discussions that will lead to a real negotiation have begun. And here's Putin explicitly saying he wants these talks to begin soon. The question that we're all wondering is whether Trump is going to resist perhaps his own instincts to do a quick deal that would involve big concessions by Ukraine, a deal that might end up biting him in the end if it leaves Ukraine unprotected against future Russian aggression. So all eyes are on that negotiating space. I think even the current administration, the Biden team, knows that negotiations are coming, trying to pump weapons in just to make sure Ukraine has as much leverage going into negotiations as possible.
So, Sam Stein, a key part of all this, of course, is the relationship between President-elect Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. We know that Trump speaks flatteringly of Putin, has for years. He was extraordinarily deferential to Putin in that Helsinki news conference. There were times when his administration and the U.S. Senate would be tough on Russia with sanctions, but Trump himself always seemed to give Putin the benefit of the doubt. He also is someone who fancies himself a deal maker and a hard negotiator. So taking this all together, what's your read on how this relationship will impact what these negotiations could look like? It's between Russia and Ukraine, to be sure, but the U.S. is going to play a role.
Right, and that was always the Biden administration's line, which is we have to have Ukraine at the table. It's their country. We can't have direct negotiations with Russia. Obviously, Donald Trump is different than Joe Biden. I think he'll take a different approach here. He'll have direct negotiations or direct talks, at least with Putin. Zelensky will be included. But my sense is that they'll probably end up giving him a take-it-or-leave-it type deal. What's interesting here, and David was talking about, is just the state that Russia is in heading into this negotiations. I'm sure Putin imagined that he'd have more of an upper hand at this juncture. Surely he thought the war would be over by this juncture. But what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is really a staggering setbacks for Russia across the world. Obviously, what's happening in Syria, Iran. Their economic situation, if you read any of the headlines out of Russia, is fairly abysmal. All that said, it's not a great hand that Putin has to play. And then, of course, as David said, the outgoing Biden administration pumping weapons into Ukraine and also weighing the possibility of additional energy sanctions to weaken Russia even further. Trump could undo all this, of course, but that would be a fairly politically precarious step to take right out of the gate. And so, yeah, I'm curious what he says directly with Putin. But if history is any guide, you imagine that he's going to give Putin the benefit of the doubt, try to get a deal done because he is on record saying he can get it done so quickly, and then hand it to Zelensky and say, take it or leave it.
Yeah, certainly there's an appetite from much of his base to end this conflict.